Hello, my lovely people. It's Tuesday. It's OCTA. We were through a very, very nasty storm yesterday. And today's agenda is really to see what type of bottom signals we can figure out, where things completely oversold, and what does the TA look like? What does the on-chain look like? Who was snagging stuff and who wasn't? And I know better than anybody, I'm like a big sponge. I feel all the feelings. I know yesterday was a dark day, but today was a huge rebound. That's how markets work. And when you've been around so long as me, the dinosaur, has, you learn to use these as an advantage. Okay, so without without further ado, let's get into it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Tindy Tazza, Sean Donnelly, K8, Swiping No Swiping, DBF 430, the whole gang. I'm going to make myself small, or did I do that correctly? I don't know. Did I kill myself? Hang on a second. There I am in the corner. All right, let me know. We're trying to figure out what's best because the slides are important. I'm not really important in all of this. And let's get into OCTA, bottom signals, not financial advice, as you know. And shout out to John Manuel 209. This is my first Patreon, and I feel blessed to be part of this community because education is the key, and we are learning every day. I hope so. That's the whole idea. And nobody does this for the community. By far the best. Thank you so much, John, and thank you to the team behind me as well. We do try our best. And yeah, these are tough times, but we'll make it through. I'm going to start with the ugly news today, then go to the bad news, and then share all the good news. And there's quite a bit to come. First of all, fear and greed. We have the lowest fear and greed, extreme fear, since the bear market of 2022. That's more than 3 years, ladies and gentlemen. And here we are. So fear is extreme. And typically, the markets go up with extreme greed, and then they tank with extreme fear. And then that fear self-perpetuates, and people get more fearful, and then they sell at the bottom. Remember, when you've been around a long time, this is the crypto fear and greed index. The buy zone is extreme fear. The sell zone is extreme greed. It's the complete opposite of how humans react. So hammer that home again for the millionth time. Crypto fear and greed is 24, up from 10 about 2 weeks ago. Not bad. Not bad at all. This is a interesting, scary, depressing chart for many as well. And it's from Hasib. But basically what he did was analyze how much of a loss the US people, the American citizens, lost by not being able to access things like crypto airdrops. And the answer is up to $5.2 billion potentially. It's a big range. It's very hard to determine exactly, but a lot of airdrops. And again, if you get an airdrop, sell it immediately. Don't hold on to it. It's free money, but some are good. So I get rewards for things like Jupiter, which I find good, and I hold on to them. But most of them, if you get an airdrop, sell it, put into something hard. Now, this is interesting from a government perspective. A total self-own. This actually, if it was 5.2 billion, this results in $1.4 billion in lost government tax revenue. Airdrops need to be legalized. And that is kind of sad. Like I remember there's people in like New York State in the US where they couldn't access pretty much anything, not just airdrops. Anyway, moving on from that, token unlocks as usual. Athena is on every week, complete money grab. This week, a 35% unlock. 35%. People freaked out about the Solana 2% unlock for 6 months. This thing does this every week. Aptos, 2%. Stark, 2.33%. Say, 1.2%. Arbitrum, 2.1%. Prime, 1.33%. Again, the tokenomics of these things are not good. And we will be talking about tokenomics later. Very important stuff coming up too, including a radical change that could change the face of layer ones out there and tokenomics across the board. Now, ugly out of the way, let's get into the bad news. And this could be construed as good news, but really it's not that good. We had the worst ETF week ever the week before last that I reported on. But this time, it looks like we're creeping back up compared to the big sell. And sometimes, again, like the fear and greed, when fear is extreme, people think, oh, Bitcoin's going to die, and they sell everything. Also, the hedge funds were reversing their carry trade, etc. But the ETFs and global ETPs, investment products for crypto, had their fourth week of outflows, and that now totals $876 million just last week. And the total over the last 4 weeks is $4.8 billion. By far the worst stretch ever. And, what's really remarkable, though, I've analyzed the ETS since day one. When you take that type of outflow and you look at how robust Bitcoin has been, it's staggering. Technically, with that amount of dumpage, the price should be around 70,000. It's not. In fact, Bitcoin, as we speak live, is $83,000. It's gone up $4,500 today. That's just how it works. It's like a ping pong ball, down, up. Yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at some more stuff too. This is, I posted quite a bit about this on Patreon this morning about what's happening around the world and how different the different countries are. And I normally don't show this because normally it's not very interesting. But we saw the US dump 922 million last week. But there are countries around the world that are getting a little bit nervous. And when you see the US dumping a lot of Bitcoin and ETFs, which is, again, mostly the hedge funds, but you see Switzerland bagging, you see Germany bagging, Canada bagging, they're stacking Bitcoin because they have bigger concerns. They're not hedge funds carrying the futures trade or whatever else like that. They are worried about their own countries, their own currency debasement, money printing, that type of stuff. And then they flock into Bitcoin pretty clearly. So it's nice to see. And if we look at the assets itself, Solana is back. Bitcoin dropped 756 million, Ethereum 19 million, and Solana 16.4 million. That's the first big week Solana's had in a couple of weeks as well. So it's changing. XRP $5.6 million, Sui 2.7. And in full disclosure, I own Bitcoin, Solana, and Sui here on this list. Cardano's dumping. But again, big move. That means people anticipate maybe an ETF is coming. There's also some other news, which I'll get to in a second. So that was interesting. Crypto over the last 7 days, it was rough. This is in Bitcoin terms. A lot of things down hard, but some things up compared to Bitcoin. Some things didn't fall as much. XRP, Cardano, it says for Doge. When we look in dollar terms, it paints a different picture. And this is, let me see, Bitcoin right now is 83,000. This screenshot's $100 off the current price. But Ethereum down 9.15% for the week. Solana down over 10%. Bitcoin down 3.5%. So despite what has happened, yesterday, if I shot this image, it would have looked very alarming, but things have rebounded back pretty well as we go forward. The stock markets, blood red across the board. Big tech, Nvidia down 5%. In fact, if you look at some of the numbers, you've got Bitcoin, it fell so far this year, down 30%. Nvidia down 30%. Tesla down 50%. Solana down 50%. So you got interesting buckets, the 30% and the 50% I find kind of interesting. Kamikars, thank you for coming. Hello to Australia and New Zealand. But all across the board, things are pretty ugly. In fact, Tesla down a whopping 14%. We'll talk about them in a minute too, because I believe that is the best AI play for the future. Now, narrative time. First time I've ever showed this, and everything is negative. Every single narrative is negative or zero over the last month. Nobody is making any money out there. So if you feel you're not making any money or losing money, everybody is in the same boat. Okay, so don't feel too bad. Now this is, let me try. I got my little image in the wrong place. Move it around. I move myself off. Inflation is spiking to the highest level since May 2024. It doesn't look like a big spike. It's actually quite small, but it is still something to keep an eye on, because a lot of what will keep the Fed from cutting rates is this persistent, nagging little inflation. And it has peaked up again for the first time in nearly a year. Not good. I'll turn my little camera back on so you can see me. And time for the good news, everybody. This is the part. And let me know in the comments below if you want me to move the ugly and the bad to the end, or start with the bad news and then come out with the good news. I always like to leave on a happy note, including meme of the day, which is a fun one to do. So we had, again, this thing is all over the place. We had the worst Feb since 2014. And so far, we've had the worst March since 2020. Remember what happened in 2020, March 2020? Anybody remember? Yep. Lockdown, C19. Bitcoin fell 25% that month. That was also a glorious buying opportunity, by the way, coincidentally. Again, I like to run into burning buildings. That's kind of my thing. That's what has made me a little bit successful. But so far, this March, we are down 7%. Historic returns in March are 9.8%. And if you include historic returns for this type of year, i.e. compared to 2013, up 180%, 2017 down 9%, 2021 up 30.1%. That is the corollary to the year we are in now. We could still have a very positive March, and then April should really kick off in earnest, which has an average return of 35.2%, the second best month ever. But seasonality this year is completely off. So we'll watch this space carefully. Normally it does work. Sometimes it's just very off. And Bitcoin season remains very strong at 22. Alts are getting smashed. So again, if you're all in on alts, you are also feeling extreme pain. Again, think Solana down over 50%, Bitcoin down only 30%. This is what's happening. When we look at the chart here, it has been murder over the last 90 days. Very few assets, some of them I haven't even heard of, have done well. The rest are just getting slaughtered, including Pepe. I think it's a meme coin, down nearly 80%. We have, let me see, Render is down 72%. And Arbitrum down 68.6%. Paul down 66%. Uniswap down 66.5%. Near down 6. It's just a bloodbath galore all across the board. And the question is, when will all season reappear? We shall see. Now, this is a first little TA chart of the day. It looks at Bitcoin mean reversion, and a couple of interesting things here. We have not seen in the last 500 days mean reversion being this low on the daily chart for Bitcoin. That is a good sign. That means we are very oversold. And when you get confluence between the confluence model and mean reversion, that's typically a buy signal. And we've just had that for the second time in 500 days. So Bitcoin at 80K, it's a buy with 95% accuracy. And you can take that to the bank, but there's always a 5% chance it could be wrong because these are models. Again, we could have next generation tariff wars or other type of missile wars happening, and that would write this off. So we'll see. But so far, we definitely look like we are deeply, deeply, deeply oversold, which means up from here. Also, daily divergence. Shout out to Luca. Same type of thing. This is the RSI, and this is what they call a bullish divergence on the daily time frame. And that is bullish in the name, a bullish divergence. That's when the RSI starts peaking up, when the price is still going down. Okay, the RSI is like the canary in the mine that shows you where things are going to go next. And this is also extremely bullish. I hope everybody's doing well today. Yesterday, people were very, very upset. Today, I hope everybody's happier. Fingers crossed. Now, what's happening? Well, the old adage is, while you were scared, what are the whales doing? Well, large Bitcoin holders, and this does not include Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy. I got that question a lot. But you can see here, the big stackers of between 1,000 and 10,000 Bitcoin have grabbed 65,000 Bitcoin just over the last couple of days. Okay. Actually, the last week. They grabbed 65,000. So as usual, and I mentioned this on DCA yesterday, when the price goes down below 90K, the whales grab it because they know the bull market's not over and they see it as a very compelling price and they stack. And then when it goes above 100K, they sell a little bit. So watch what these folks do. They are pretty good at market timing. While retail's panicking, the whales are buying. Same thing over and over and over again every single cycle. Also, long-term holders, another piece of good news. Again, we're looking at data here to try to come up with the thesis. Is the bottom in? And from Axel, the active selling by long-term holders on exchanges has completely ended, with the monthly moving average inflow dropping from about 3.8% down to 1%. Minimal selling activity from long-term holders is a positive sign, and therefore there is no more downward pressure on price. So not only did the ETF stop buying, but they started dumping, which should have technically taken the price to 70,000. It didn't, but the long-term holders are also done selling, which is good, and the whales are stacking. So that's basically the story. What happens when the ETFs start buying Bitcoin again? And that's going to happen next week, maybe later this week. Pretty much certain. They are also done selling. So we shall see if I'm right about that. Now, a little bit of historic perspective from Jelly. And I hope Jelly doesn't mind. I added some arrows to make it very clear. The left chart is 2025. The right chart is 2020. The left chart has this kind of like, I don't know what you call that shape, like an upside down U, where prices retraced. And in 2020, we had the same thing, exact same thing. This is the exact same point in time of the cycle, 2025 versus 2020. And this was later 2020, but it was in line with the halving cycle. And we know what happens next. We'll see if it repeats this time around. Let me see if I can actually zoom into those actual numbers. Yeah, that bottom in 2020 occurred in the middle of September 2020. The bottom for us occurred at the beginning of March 2025. So it's approximately 4 years and 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months later, give or take. A couple of weeks, a couple of months. So we shall see if things continue. If history repeats, good times are ahead. No doubt about that. If this time is different, then maybe we'll stay flat or go down more. We're not sure. But either way, things are looking good so far. And more on the whales from Crypto Quant. They snagged the 65,000 Bitcoin. And despite the correction, whales kept in and they were buying. And normally retail follows. But watch what the whales do. And this is also a little bit of bad news. And like we mentioned before, if you feel that you are losing money, well, we have gone. This chart basically shows you how we've gone from 99% of holders of Bitcoin being in profit, falling to 76%, which means that 23% of the Bitcoin supply is currently in an unrealized loss. And that's about 4.5 million Bitcoin out of the 19.85 million approximately. And this is normal in such a correction. We saw the same thing happen back in the middle of 2024. And that's just how it works. Markets get overbought, then they get oversold, then they get overbought again, then they get oversold. And we'll see if we get 3 of these red buttons. I don't think so from the data I'm seeing. Looks like that was it, because the ETFs will probably start buying again. The SBRs are coming. We'll talk about that in a second. And long-term holders are not selling. Speaking of SBRs, we now have 29 states. Shout out to Carl as well. In the crypto landscape, 29 states now have a Bitcoin bill or another. This chart also includes states that put a Bitcoin bill together, but maybe it didn't pass, like I think Utah, or it did pass, but they removed the Bitcoin language from the actual bill. Normally a bill has a whole bunch of garbage in it. So some good stuff, some bad stuff. You never know what you're going to get. And some people don't even read the things. But anyway, the important thing here is Texas, which is one of the biggest states in the United States. I think it's the biggest state from a landmass apart from Alaska. I could be wrong on that. My geography is terrible. But they are now making very bold moves, and they want to go further with their Bitcoin reserve bill and add an additional $250 million onto the $500 million. And they want to solidify their position of being a Bitcoin state, a Bitcoin leader, a home for Bitcoin miners, and be first. Because if you're not first, you're last, as they say, maybe in the South. And Deutsche Bank years and years ago weren't really a big fan of Bitcoin, but now all of a sudden they're saying, Deutsche Bank report says the United States reserve makes Bitcoin a hard reserve asset. And it's funny because this is Deutsche Bank out of Germany, very big operations in the United States as well. But this has sent shockwaves through the ECB. All of a sudden, money printer control by big nations or big regions is being upset by this thing called Bitcoin. Terrible. Anyway, this could change international standards for global reserves and also shake up and even remove some of the power from places like the ECB. So shout out to Christine Lagarde. Keep up the great work. Sarcasm. Anyway, Saylor, big things are coming with the big B, Bitcoin B right there. And he knows, he's been smiling since November. He knows big things are coming. But what exactly does that mean? Well, Cynthia Lummis also says big things are coming, but this time she says, I am for real this time. Not that she wasn't before, but basically she's adding some kind of extra conviction there. And the question is, what does this all mean? But before we jump into what this all means, let's check out the HODL model update, which I think is appropriate. This HODL model, the Bitcoin proxies got hammered over the last couple of weeks, but they are rebounding nicely. So basically, when Bitcoin price falls, the proxies get hammered 2 or 3 times worse than Bitcoin price. That's just how it works. But when Bitcoin price spikes, these things do 2 or 3 times better than Bitcoin price. So it's like an amplified version of Bitcoin. So that's an important way to think about these proxies. But the NAV premium winner on the board is Marathon 1.16. So basically, if you spend $1 in Marathon, you're buying 86 cents worth of Bitcoin. Semler, if you spend $1 in Semler, you get 84 cents of Bitcoin. HUT, 73 cents. MicroStrategy, 66 cents. NAV premium is 1.52. And that's kind of where we are for these puppies so far. But getting back to this new Bitcoin legislation, it's for real this time. What exactly is the plan? And this video has been flying around Twitter, and a lot of people believe that in fact, Michael Saylor alluded to as well, 1 million Bitcoin will be acquired over the next 5 years by the US government using no taxpayer money. And the question is, how do they buy Bitcoin with that money? Well, the Fed has a thing called federal remittances. They have gold certificates that are valued at very low levels. I don't know, 20, 30, 40 bucks an ounce instead of 3,000 nearly. And these revaluations will generate more money. And they have the thing called the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which can generate some revenues. And we'll see what's going to happen. But a lot of people, you got Cynthia Lummis here, very positive on Bitcoin, that it's going to happen. And you got Michael Saylor saying it's going to happen. So the question is, will it happen? I'm not sure, but we can hope so. Either way, good luck, Nick. Make it happen. Make it happen. It'll be huge. And this is also from Carla. And a big part of what we're seeing today, especially around the news cycles, Europe is launching. And I know there's some lack of clarity around what they want to do, but apparently Christine Lagarde wants to launch a CBDC in Europe in October. Okay. That, like, if I was on the ground in Europe and I heard that, I would take everything out of my bank and buy Bitcoin. Not financial advice, but that would terrify me. So once they control your money, they can make you do whatever they want you to do. And the US says there will be no CBDC, and we'll have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We're doubling down on AI and everything else. So it's like everything is a little bit topsy-turvy, and it looks like Europe and the US are going in different directions when they should be going in the same direction, focused on where the big threat is coming from, and that is China. So just my 2 cents. I could be completely wrong. And a little bit about altcoins, some good news, well, and bad news. Ethereum Dominance Tanks to 8.8%. Some people said it would never fall below 10%. And here we are at 8.8%. Remember, ETH back in 2017 had the dominance of over 26%. So it's come down quite a bit. And you're looking at many years here as this goes back 7, 8 years. So it's an interesting chart. But now this trend is continuing to just fall badly. So not sure when ETH will rebound, but maybe never. And Solana, the so-called ETH killer, they're kind of coming up with this vote to reduce inflation on Solana, which currently is not that bad at all, but that will reduce inflation from about 4.8% down to about 0.86% inflation if it passes. And it's looking possible that it might. The voting ends at the end of epoch 755. I've got to figure out when that is. And if this does happen, all of a sudden, Solana becomes the hardest layer one asset. Remember, Bitcoin inflation is 0.85%. Solana, if this passes, will be 0.86%. My question is, what happens if an Ethereum ETF comes? I mean, so much is staked. There's very little on exchanges. We could see a crazy pump. So hopefully, and people say, well, if inflation goes down, well, won't my staking rewards go down? Well, the math of it is your price appreciation will far exceed your staking rewards. So please think price appreciation. Do you want an asset to go from 120 to 240? Or do you want an asset to stay at 120 and get 6 or 8% per year? The answer is you want it to double. Okay, that'll impact price appreciation more. But if you look at all these names, you got Cadena, annual inflation score 12.9%, Sui 12.6%, Say 8.6%. It's funny, Say and Sui were both born the same time. Their inflation is different. Ton Coin 8.3%, etc. You see some of their Cardano is 5.1%. Solana inflation is already lower than Cardano. Ethereum currently, because things aren't going very well, is 4%. So the ultrasound money thing didn't happen. Kusama 4%. You see, if Solana goes to 0.86%, it'll be by far the hardest layer one on the planet. That's actually somewhat relevant. There might be a layer one out there that has zero inflation, but nobody uses it. Maybe it's EOS or something. We'll see. Anyway, moving on. Other things are happening in the crypto world. Centralized exchange volumes are down hard. Shout out to Sanjay as well for this chart. You can see here, you're not the only ones hurt by this downturn. When the price goes down, people lose interest and they move on to other pastures. And look at this. Binance down 20%, Bybit down 20%, BitGet down 20%, Crypto.com, Crypto.com, the name that wants to unburn their burn tokens for their centralized exchange token, which is very centralized. Don't ever touch those things. Down 27.1%, KuCoin 24.7%, etc. Kraken down 26%. I've had, I won't say. Anyway, I'll skip that note. And this is interesting. We'll talk a bit about stocks now and Tesla. And I know I can hear the groans already, but listen, there's a new term that I came up with from this guy here. This is Adam Jonas from Sawyer Merritt. He said this 50% pullback is a generational buying opportunity for an embodied AI compounder. Compounder means there are different synergies between the business that will create even more value. And he's covered Tesla for 15 years. And we find that the investor narrative around the company tends to follow the share price. Yeah, and we know what the narrative's like. Bad. However, he does say that we could hit $200. We came real close yesterday. Great dip yesterday. Very low 200s. Potentially before hitting $800 a share within the next 12 months. And Tesla is their top pick in the US. And remember, all-time high is $485. Low 200s right now. And the future is bright. But don't believe me. Ask Elon Musk, responding to James Stevenson. Long term, we'll be fine. So just, ride out the storms, use these as opportunities. That's how it works. But the other big story is FSD. FSD is nearing near human level intelligence. And what's big about this is from Altimeter, one of the smartest hedge fund VC managers out there with really, really clever people. But they talked about the FSD rate of improvement and in the disengagement ratio. I use FSD. I don't get in a car without it. I don't ever not turn it on anymore. It takes me everywhere. But this shows you the step changes between the different versions over time. And basically a 10x from version 12.1 to 12.3, and then a 3x from 12.3 to 12.4. then 100x and 12.4 to 12.5, and a steep rise implied. Maybe if we go from 12.5 to version 13, this is kind of in line with the Cybercab stuff. I don't know what's going to happen, or version 14.7 all the way up to whatever. But the point is, the pace of change and the development and the rate of improvement is me basically telling us that it'll be better than a human in a very short window of time. In fact, I can already tell you, it's better than the majority of humans I see driving on the roads. People are asleep at the wheel. People are doing makeup at the wheel. People are on their phones at the wheel. People are distracted or losing focus or veering into other cars. Getting on the roads these days is the most dangerous I've ever seen it. It's insane. Anyway, I believe from compared to many drivers, it's already better. And people are searching for Tesla cars. No, Tesla's not dead. All of a sudden, people are searching for Tesla cars, but maybe they're searching for them to torch them, I don't know, or buy them. A lot of people, there's been a bit backlash again. There was a backlash one way already to hating on Tesla. Now the backlash is going the other way to buying Tesla to support Tesla. So we'll see. And short squeeze, is it incoming? Shout out again to Sanjay. But this shows you from Zero Hedge, we just had a record high of put option volumes hit the market. Insane amount of puts being bought. And this is typically what happens. So the market's lost $5 trillion in the last month of market cap, $5 trillion. And the put volume is now 30 million contracts, all-time high. But typically what happens is these puts are purchased to try and defend, but sometimes they buy the insurance too late. Like they wait till their house is burnt down before they buy the insurance. And that's exactly what you see here. But typically when this happens, it can be followed by a short squeeze. So we'll see if that actually goes on. Bitcoin above $83,000. Not bad. Let me see what else is. Anything else moving out there? MicroStrategy up $22 today. Not bad. And things are recovering, I guess, relatively fast. But this could set us up for a very nice short squeeze too. And another weird, interesting piece of news. This is from let me try to remember Tom Gagne or Trevor Gagne. I can't remember his first name, but he had this really cool study where there's a thing called GLP-1s. It's like a Wegovy. It's a weight loss drug. And any household where there is a member of the family on this GLP-1 drug, over the last 6 months, their grocery spend has fallen between 7 to 9%. So for those of you who are looking to lose weight and save money on groceries, this could be the answer. And of course, I don't recommend this stuff. I do believe it messes with the natural balance of the human body. I don't believe in hormones being injected into your body. But if you are suffering from, life-threatening illnesses, maybe it's a solution. It also apparently helps with Alzheimer's too. But we shall see. Anyway, final thing, meme du jour. And sometimes it's important to laugh about this stuff. And I know it's hard when people lose money. I lost a lot of money yesterday, but most of it came back today. So it's violent swings. But this is a funny meme I saw out there today. Remember, the markets are a blood sport. And the number of days since I lost a poop load of money, 0. It's actually technically 1 day. Anyway, I just thought that was a nice note to end on. All these videos are turned into Substack, so you can listen to them. You can get all the slides and all the write-ups if you prefer to read. And thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you for being here. And thank you to the mods in the chat. And I hope you enjoyed the show. That was OCTA. Hopefully the mood is a little bit better than yesterday. Thank you once again, Sean Donnelly, TND Tesla, K8, and everybody else. And that's a very good point, actually, from Brett Gwynn. Actually, I'm going to pop this up. Oh, wrong. The chat's moving so fast, I'm trying to grab it. Where'd it go? Yes, Brett makes a very good point. You don't lose until you sell. So when you're in the markets, it's all paper movements up and down. But remember, you're playing the long game. Don't think in terms of 2 to 4 weeks out or 6 to 12 weeks out. Think about building a position that will change your life. That is funny. Thank you, TND Tesla. And thank you to the mods. And cheers to everybody down under blues. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.